Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another week of the Legacy Premier League, sponsored by, in fact, Wizards of the Coast, Card Hoarder, and Scott Monroe. We couldn't do this without them. I'm Phil Gallagher, joined in the booth here by Michael Bonde. How are you doing tonight?
I wouldn't call it day anymore. It's past midnight, but I'm doing immensely great. I don't know if that's the word for the occasion, but I'm doing extremely well, Phil. Thank you very much.
Is there any particular reason why there's a swing in your step and you're so happy today?
Well, yes, because we have been talking 25 minutes pre-game. One, we're going to see some sweet Legacy action. I'm going to play against Mengucci. We're going to see some Death and Taxes, but this week is a specific week where Ren and 6 got banned in Legacy. So both you and myself can cheer for GP alone. It's going to be extremely sweet with Mother of Runes back on track.
Oh, yeah. So many creatures and strategies got pushed out of the format. You weren't seeing very many Bobs, Mother of Runes, decks with a lot of non-basic lands, and now all of those things are going to be coming back again.
Yeah. So all the boring decks, they're gone. Now we only have semi-boring and Delver, and we're going to see some sweet creature action.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of innovation and interesting strategies in the next couple of weeks. But I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people just kind of pick safe decks for the GP.
Yes, I am picking a safe deck. Post Ren and 6, pre Ren and 6 Death and Taxes deck. So that's going to be great.
I believe this is what the children say, but I'm looking forward to yeeting my Giver of Runes and never playing with them again.
Yeah, I don't know what they say. I never explore into words that I don't know.
All right, so why don't we go ahead and take a look at our playoff bracket and kind of see what's on the line here.
Yes. We have a sweet bracket with some insane sweet players all across the board. Some are eliminated, but some are also both in the winners and the lower bracket. The lower bracket is myself and you included, Phil, and those are some of the matches we're going to see tonight. So we have Jarvis against Julian in the winners bracket. We have Javier against Autumn in the winners bracket as well. The winner of those two will fight in the winners finals.
And that's a very exciting place to be.
Yes, and it's 3 decks compared to what we're doing now with the 1 deck best of 3. It's going to be 3 decks best of 3. So that's going to be pretty crazy.
So looking at the lower bracket, tonight we are going to finish one of the matches that originally was scheduled for last week. So we are going to have Pleasant Kenobi facing off against Bryan. And then after that, I will play the winner of that match.
Yeah. And we are going to commentate on the Pleasant Kenobi against Bryan Gottlieb in the first match. So we're going to see who you are going to play against.
So why don't we take a look at what Twitter said?
Yeah.
Oh. Pleasant Kenobi, an overwhelming favorite here.
Yeah.
But, Twitter polls aren't always right. We'll see how it ends up going.
They weren't last week, at least against me, and they gave me a 37% against Cyrus, and I crushed him. So it could be anything at this point. Maybe it's a popularity competition. He's a really nice guy, Pleasant Kenobi, though Bryant is also a very, very nice guy.
So I already know the answer to this question because I had to prepare my deck list ahead of time. So I know who's going to win this match. But who do you think is going to win this match?
I can see Mengucci is writing popularity contest confirmed because he won like 69% against me. Damn. Oh, sorry. The question again, Phil.
Who do you think is going to win? Who are you rooting for tonight? Pleasant Kenobi or Bryan?
I actually don't know. I think it's a very, very close matchup. Death and Taxes, if they get early out of the gates, the Delver decks have a hard time, but vice versa. If the Delver decks get control, it can be hard for Death and Taxes to actually get back in the game. So I think it depends a lot on the early turns and some of the plays.
All right, so let's take a look at our 2 deck lists now. Pleasant Kenobi is going to be on Death and Taxes, so let's look at his list first.
Yes.
So what stands out to you here?
So one of the things that stands out is Flagstones of Torquir. People who play the deck a lot knows that that this card can be good when you play Cataclysm, but if you don't play Cataclysm, it's kind of random. It's not really a downside, but is it good or is it not good? So it's
I've
funny that
gotten hit in the butt by Blood Moon and Back to Basics and an oddly timed Wasteland too many times to want to play Flagstones.
yeah. So it is actually like it's more often a downside than even though you, but it is pretty good when you pop a Cataclysm with a Flagstones on the board. But what stands out? This stands out that he has a split of 2/2 Giver of runes, and Mother of Runes. And he's playing some one-off in. I like the Jailer, I like the Crusader, I like the Prelate. I don't know about the Charming Prince. I haven't played it, but I think I kind of dislike only playing 2 Recruiter of the Guard with the new meta. So, what do you think about the list, Phil?
I think the list is okay.
Yeah.
I really hate Giver of Runes, and I don't think I want to be playing Charming Prince in a new metagame. I think I would want to be playing just more copies of something strong that kills people, either Mirren Crusader or maybe Sarah Avenger. But you can see he's kind of taking a nod to depth still being around by playing a couple copies of Tomic.
Yeah, I think Tomic is always a card that impresses me when I play it and it's good. But sometimes it's also just medium. But if we look at the sideboard, Phil, we were talking about Deafening Silence before we went on. 2 copies. So what do you think Vince thought that Bryan would play?
So if you're playing Deafening Silence, it's a big statement that says, I think you are going to be on a Storm deck. Because Deafening Silence is less flexible than other cards that you can play in that slot, such as Aethersworn Canonist or Chalice of the Void. So that's kind of a strong statement that Pleasant Kenobi was hedging against a very fast combo deck that can play multiple spells a turn.
Yeah, so it is actually pretty interesting because he's playing 2 Path to Exile, 2 Cataclysm, 2 Deafening Silence. So he's like he has some really strong cards against specific archetypes. So he must have been thinking that Bryant is playing like one of those 3. But then he also has like Containment Priest, Leonin, Surgical. Like he has a pretty versatile sideboard, but also like a very focused sideboard at the same time. But
yeah, I think this is a safe sideboard in that it's not too heavily metagamed against any one deck.
But it is, if I would say, it is not the best against what we will see Bryan playing in a moment.
Yeah, let's take a look at that then. So we're looking at a Delver deck here, and the first thing that I notice is a whopping 3 copies of Brazen Borrower.
Yeah, the standard all-star at the moment.
Yeah, that card is... Go ahead.
That card is pretty good. I will agree. It's a very flexible card. It's like a Flicker Wisp in Death and Taxes, I would say. It's like a catch-all against all these random. But it also kind of gives the deck a whole new tempo, like an old school, what's it called, Canadian threshold tempo style, I think.
Oh yeah, this is still very much like a Ren and 6 style Delver list. Except you have like Brazen Borrowers instead of Ren and 6, and you're not seeing the Hooting Man rolls that you saw in a lot of the other Stifle builds.
Yeah, I think like I'm not playing that much Delver these days because I kind of tend to not like the style. I think Death and Taxes is more fun. And then I sleeved up Sneaking Show for later, so I guess my opinion doesn't really matter. But the 3 Brazen Borrower works really well with both Stifle and Daze, I think. And then having like 6 Force of Wills in the Force of Negation and 2 Spell Pierce and only 1 Oko. I think the deck is really like low to the ground and really like trying to get fast off the gates and just disrupt like a 2013 Canadian threshold. And I really like that, and I would imagine that Bryant is a person who likes those kind of games as well.
I really do like his sideboard, though. Like, man, there are some haymakers versus Death and Taxes here. You know, you see 2 Ancient Grudges, Pithing Needle, another Oko, a Null Rod, a Caracas if you want to go into that. Like, there are great cards for the matchup at his disposal.
Yeah, and I also think that having this versatile sideboard is is what will make me think that he's favored in the matchup, because there's a lot of cards here that not Rex, but at least have a really good game plan against what Vince is playing with his Death in Texas.
Yeah, someone in chat brings up a really good point, that there is still a waterlogged Grove in this deck list, even though there's not a Renin 6 around anymore.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Nothing wrong against Bryan, but if he does the same as I do, I have a hard time making the perfect mana bases. So I know that people are actually smarter than me in this regard and in a lot of other regards. So I always just copy the mana base, and then I try to fiddle around with it. So maybe he just copied the mana base that works out and didn't bring out the water growth.
All right. I think our players are ready, so why don't we go ahead and go down to the match.
And let's see what we have here. We have Vincent to play.
With a beautiful opening hand.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could pick the exact cards you wanted, that's not quite it, but it's real close.
Yeah, I'll agree. But on the other hand, we have Brian, who also has a pretty good hand. He has some plays, but he also has a lot of lands. And the Wasteland isn't really the spell that you want against Death in Texas.
Yeah, so Pleasant Kenobi has a lot of different lines he can take here. He could just, port this down. He can remove the Delver immediately. Plenty of good lines that all end up in similar places. But I definitely like just getting rid of the Delver there. Keep the pressure off. Let the Vial continue to tick up.
Yeah, this is the perfect start. Having a Vial with counters and having way of disrupting your opponent's mana, and also getting to play the Giver runes in the turn. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. And Bryan's going to get into kind of a weird spot this turn, one way or another. He can choose to Wasteland and hold up Lightning Bolt for an end-step Mother of Runes or Giver of Runes, or he can just slam the Tarmogoyf. He can Brainstorm to try to find something like another Delver to try to get, a better pressure on the board than just a 2-3 Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, but he did get the Brainstorm here, so having the Lightning Bolt and having a Vial at one counter on your opponent's side, I don't think you want to play the Tarmogoyf just into a potential Mother Runes. I think you just want to...
I think you need to play patiently to not just lose the Mother of Runes.
Yeah.
So of note, Giver of Runes and Mother of Runes are very different in that Giver can't protect itself. So frequently you don't actually need to Lightning Bolt on the end step like that. But Pleasant Kenobi is playing a one of Charming Prince. So in that case, I do like just taking the bolt there before Charming Prince protection is up.
Yeah, I agree. And here he plays out the Giver rune. So he didn't draw the second land to be able to cast Tomic, which is kind of annoying, but he has the Vial. So in the end, it doesn't really do that much. It could have been nice to have the Tomic as Wasteland protection, though.
Yeah,
and so... we see a Brainstorm here as well for Bryan, with the potential of a shuffle effect with Blue Delta. This is really one of the really forces in playing these blue decks.
Those aren't necessarily the cards you're looking for if you're Bryan here. So he's behind on board, so he kind of is going to need to clear up the board, and these counter spells aren't going to do a lot if Vince is missing his land drops.
No.
But you also kind of wanted to be able to shuffle away one of those lands. This is a difficult spot, and I guess you've got to hope that your Tarmogoyf can stabilize in the board, but Vince is going to be attacking in the air, so we've got problems.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see if he's actually going to keep the Force of Will and just putting away Daze. No, he put away 2 lands, so...
I think I would have been playing towards trying to find Oko and shut off the Ether Vial. I guess he only has 1 Oko. That's playing towards a 1-of. Maybe that's too risky. That would be the thing I would be afraid of if I was Vince, though. Oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah, I guess we're not going to see Ryan shuffle, so that's pretty good. So let's see if he fires off the Wasteland here. It
Yeah.
can't be like it gives back some tempo if he fires off Wasteland, but he might think here that he wants
Recruitering
to,
for a Stone Forge or something is strong as
yeah,
well.
is exactly. But if he does that, then Bryan kept the days. So if he does that, then the days is pretty amazing here.
Yeah. So Vince is sort of taking an aggressive line, perhaps thinking that his opponent has just put back any counterspells because they would be bad.
Yeah.
And he has gotten a Flicker Wisp.
I like getting the Flicker Wisp here. Because you have protection in your Giver of Runes, so Bryan has to have 2 removal spells to kill the Recruiter. Next turn, you can just cast it on the Recruiter, get a Palace Jailer, and maybe just lock up the game if you want to do that. Yeah, Dokes on Twitch is saying Flicker Chain. You can also, yeah, it is a Flicker Chain. Eventually, I would just go for the Palace Jailer, I think.
So I'm not entirely sure why Pleasant Kenobi didn't Wasteland. He must have a plan. Maybe his goal is to play around like days and other soft permission this game or something like that. I'm not 100% sure what his angle is by not Wastelanding.
I think he's if you right now he can get like a Stoneforge Mystic or something else that he wants to play. So if he just wastes away, he's not gonna cast any of his equipments if you draw them, or any of the creatures that are converted mana cost 2 or less. So I think he's not wasting. Like wasting gives away some tempo, but Bryan just brainstormed and have the ability to shuffle. So you don't know if his 2 lands on top. So if you waste, he's not gonna shuffle. So I think I would not fault him for doing it. I probably would have wasted, but I think doing this gives you Sword to Plowshares and gives you all your 1 mana dorks and 2 mana dorks. I kind of like that.
It also lets you, I guess, play an Ether Vial through a daze, because you aren't necessarily going to go and get all of your 2-drops for free now that the Vial has moved up to 3.
Yeah. So I think it's a nice play around days, even though sometimes you just want to fire it off straight away.
That's a Stifle.
Yeah, it's actually pretty nice with the Flicker Wisp chain here that you can actually stop the Stifle. So even though it seems like a random or bad draw, I think it's actually pretty good here.
Yeah, it can also do some weird things like disrupt a Giver of Runes activation.
Yeah.
It's better than it looks here.
Yeah. Also, if Pleasant Kenobi gets to play Stoneforge Mystic, you just get to snipe the fetch and equipment trigger. So this is one of the games, like when you play a game of Magic, this is where I want to be, not dying on turn 1 and 2, and actually going into turn 8 where
oh boy, that is a draw.
where everything can happen. Yeah, the Palace Jailer is pretty good. There is a problem though. Palace Jailer takes your Ether Vial up to 3 or 4, and then you can't play any other cards in your deck, which is a huge downside, especially on this board.
Yeah, so we'll see how aggressively Pleasant Kenobi is going to play this one. He's very much favored in the position that he's currently in. This attack seems to indicate to me that he might be trying to set up a trade with the Delver, maybe flicker out the Tarmogoyf, or just like flicker the Recruiter again, and then try to use Palace Jailer. Brazen Borrower is not a bad draw here. But unfortunately, he has this choice of being able to Brazen Borrower or Stifle, not both.
Yeah, unless he draws a... No, yeah.
Need more mana. That's the choke point of this game. That Aether Vial has produced, I don't know, 10 or 12 mana at this point for a single mana investment. and that's very, very strong. Okay, there is another land. That's quite helpful.
Yeah, but it comes after Ponder, so it would be the same. It's either Stifle or Brazen Board still. But next turn, we're gonna see everything next turn. Also, fetching this is kind of awkward with the Brainstorm when you have two medium dead cards in your hand with Daze and Stifle.
There's a really weird attacking sub-game here involving this Stifle, where he has both the Ether Vial on 3 that has Flicker Wisp and Giver of Runes to think about.
Choose to shuffle. Okay, so Anorak is microing the chat here, just to showing that they choose to shuffle. We are watching on a small screen, that's why I had to.
So this is going to be a second main phase, probably Flicker Wisp the Recruiter just to get another card out of it.
Let's see. Okay, so he's going to stifle it here, which I like. This could make Vince make the vial go up to 4.
That's not the best time to stifle, right? You should stifle the Flicker Wisp return trigger so the Recruiter body also disappears.
Yes, but that is an interaction that never comes up, so I would not floor Bryan for that could happen. Yeah, so he does indeed make it go up to 4. And let's see if he takes Tarmogoyf or Delver. Tarmogoyf would be the most efficient, but I would take Delver here.
He takes nothing. Yeah, I'd take Delver and crash for 8 in the air and plan on just like chump blocking the Tarmogoyf, not activating Giver of Runes.
Yeah, so the mono white control takes the first game.
All right, let's take a look at sideboarding.
I would think that Bryan.
Honorog, can we move the sneaky notepad out of the way? Thank you.
Putting it in an even worse place. So
we already kind of talked about Bryan's pile o' hate that he can bring in, and we're seeing most of that coming in. The Oko, the Null Rod, the Pithing Needle, the Ancient Grudges. There's a lot of goodies to be brought in. I expect some number of the counter spells to come out and maybe some number of the stifles.
Yeah. There's always, like, back in the good old days, people always boarded out all Force of Will. But I have run into more Force of Wills than I imagined possible in the later era of Death in Texas versus the World.
Yeah. So on Pleasant Kenobi's side, I'm expecting to see Path to Exile and Rest in Peace come in. Those cards are just going to be absolutely slam dunks, extremely powerful. A lot of times versus Rug, I'll end up boarding out my Phyrexian Revokers, even though there's usually a target or two. They're not particularly great.
No, and there's actually, Phil, there's a pretty interesting question in the chat from Burnt Flapjack or whatever, about Rest in Peace. Because I always find Rest in Peace, I want it in, but then I also don't want it in. So do you have any thoughts about Rest in Peace against the Delver decks?
So my philosophy has always been, if you're boarding in Rest in Peace to shut off Tarmogoyf, then your removal can go at the other creatures.
Yep.
You only, as Death and Taxes versus Rug Delver, you will probably only draw 1 or 2 pieces of removal in an entire game. So a Resolved Rest in Peace is a removal spell for 4 Tarmogoyfs simultaneously. Yep. It doesn't matter when they come. I think Rest in Peace is very important.
Yeah, but do you think 2 Rest in Peace is important or only 1?
I board 2 Rest in Peace if I'm playing 2, but I can totally understand playing 1.
Yeah.
Note, Vince is boarding in his Leonin Relic order, which shows you how much respect he is having for Null Rod in this matchup.
Yeah.
That is a singleton, but it's something to keep in mind.
But it's a singleton in a deck with Ponders, Brainstorms. So I think it's probably, you draw it more often than Death and Texas draw their singletons cards.
All right. I really like Bryan's opening hand. What do you think of Vince's opening hand?
I think this is one of the issues that you sometimes get where you have like the double cost of white, but you have like one of your disruption land pieces. So I think I would have mulliganed as well because you just don't do anything the first 2 turns.
Yeah, I absolutely like that mulligan.
Yeah. And getting it to ship away a land, this is a double removal hand in Stoneforge. It's a bit soft to Daze, but this is me like looking at Bryan's hand. But I think overall the hand is pretty good. Then depending on what Bryan does and how patient Vince is, we're gonna see if Daze is gonna be a blowout card or a bad card.
Yeah. So just to talk about different ways you could have approached Vince's hand, I personally would have bottomed Rishadenport, valuing the ability to just have triple planes versus a Wasteland deck. But he instead has kept the Rishadenport, saying, hey, I'm going to port down one of your lands on my turn 2 instead of playing the Stoneforge, and that'll let me play around Daze for the rest of the game. Micro decisions in Death and Taxes matter so much.
Yeah, and I think I would have done the same, because the Rishadenport, if you draw Wasteland as it does here, the Rishadenport just gets so much better. I think when Bryan has the ability to play Stifle, you don't know if he boarded it out or not. I think I would have just fired off the Wasteland here on the Volcanic Island, when you have double removal spell and the Stoneforge Mystic. But I like playing around Daze, so I can see both plays being possible here.
Yeah, if Bryan didn't have a turn 1 Delver and he kept his hand, that probably means that he has a turn 2 threat of some nature, in all likelihood. So I do like Wastelanding as well.
So let's please not play a Swords to Plowshares here. Okay, thank God.
Oh, wow, yet another removal spell.
Yeah, so the drawing 2 in a game, this is... Yeah, this was actually pretty fun, since Bryan could have saved it with double Daze, but I think I like not the double dazing.
Yeah, little does he know there's 2 Path to Exiles in Vince's hand on the other side of the table.
And maybe the reason why Vince didn't Wasteland like in the last game is that he evaluates the green mana sources more than the red mana sources, and he wanted to hit a green mana source. Because here he hits the green again, and it's kind of devastating if Bryan didn't draw the land here. So I actually like just leaving up the red mana sources.
And just another possibility, Vince could also be used to be playing against Ren and 6 Delver, where we're just Wastelanding them is absolutely terrible. Because they just like play Ren and 6, get their lands back, and it's like, all right, well, I've lost this game. So some of those habits might not be broken yet, you know.
Yeah.
This is one of the first matches he's probably played post-banning.
Yeah, I will agree. Yeah, it's also a possibility.
Yeah, so here we see kind of something that we talked about from the opening hand, the desire to not play into Daze and instead to just wait and play the Stoneforge Mystic around.
Yes, but I think when you have double removal spell and Rishadenport, I really like not playing into Daze, because Daze is just such a bad card on like if you get to your 3rd and 4th land drop. That makes sense because you only have to play 1. So I like this because it takes away the Tarmogoyf. It gives you like a way of playing around Daze. I think he's playing like really not conservative in a negative way, but in a good way here.
Yeah, it's a safe play.
Yeah.
So again, I wouldn't be surprised if we just see him port down the tropical island again and then play the Stoneforge when he's on 4 mana.
Yeah. And playing the Stoneforge when he's on 4 mana gives like a super sweet that Bryan can like Daze to play Tarmogoyf, but the Stoneforge will resolve regardless. So let's see if Bryan Dazes for tempo here, or if he just force wills.
I think that's a hard Daze to make.
Yeah, but sometimes you just gotta do it.
Oh, no force of will. He's allowing the equipment to happen so that he can just lightning bolt the Stoneforge Mystic instead.
Yeah, and I like that if he takes a card like Batterskull or basically anything. And having the Brazen Borer and equipment is not really the most annoying thing right now.
And Bryan not hitting a land drop over these last couple of turns has been absolutely brutal.
But he is also only playing a couple, right? They only play...
those Delver decks are a little greedy in that regard, yeah.
Oh, he didn't post in the original. He didn't post his mana base. I would imagine he plays 18 or 20 or something like that.
All right. So now we have seen the Stoneforge Mystic effectively be a 3-for-1. It got Force of Will, Blue Card, and Bolt, since Bryan chose to let that resolve. Again, no lands. There's a creature in play, but bad news. Path to Exile and Friends are here.
Yeah. So see if he plays the Flicker Wisp, exiling his own land.
Yeah, and then I think you can just Path to Exile the Delver very safely.
Yeah, and then get to tap down the green source.
So it was probably better to do that in the end step before something like a Spell Pierce was held up. I didn't check the deck list, but I don't think Bryan has a basic land in there. But Vince may be further waiting. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's not really like the Delver is doing much here. Like it's just a 1/1, so maybe he just wants to have Bryan flip it, or just see if he flips it, and if it becomes an issue, he wants to fire it off. But also he might just wait because he can reset it next turn with the Flicker Wisp, and just don't care about it. So it's only a Tarmogoyf that he's gonna path here.
All right, so we finally see Bryan drawing another land. Unfortunately, it is not a green source. A green source would have meant that a Tarmogoyf or a Sylvan Library could have slipped on board, both of which would have been absolutely amazing.
And I can see in the chat that people are asking if Buck is a thing. And Andreas is playing a Buck Delver today, even though Julian said that it's Buck 4-color control or 4-color Delver. I think Buck is a real thing, but there's no new lists after the bannings, so it's hard to just submit a new deck that hasn't been tested.
All of the deck lists are available on Julian's Twitter page. We'll be showing the deck list before every match, but if you're curious, you can take a look there.
And Buck is coming up next round. But let's focus a little bit more on this one. So let's see if he gets to flip the... So he shows a Brazen Borer, and it flips. Wow, nice. I actually didn't know that interaction.
Oh, yeah, that works. That's something that had not occurred to me, and that's really cool in Delver deck building.
Yep. Did you get a tempo card that also, like, it's a creature, but also flips your... that's pretty neat.
So Bryan has plenty of answers to the things that Pleasant Kenobi has going on.
Yeah, and the thing is here, I think Vince wants to take 3 here. Had he fired off the Path to Exile in a previous turn, he wouldn't have taken the 3, which might matter late game. But he took the 3 because he really respects the days, because what else would Bryan have in his hand? So I like taking 3, even though it can be some crucial damage. So I would imagine here that he's gonna play the Stoneforge Mystic, or Flicker the Stoneforge Mystic.
I'm not so sure. He might just be unflipping the Delver. Yeah, because he didn't activate his own Stoneforge yet to sneak the Jitte in.
He did remove it. I think I like playing. I like attacking. I could definitely see myself like I just want to have this resolved before I take any other actions and not attacking. So let's see here. So it comes back, and then again, let's see if he's actually. I think he really wants to tap down that green source, and he might think that Bryan has like 2 or 3 days in his hand, so he doesn't want to give him the opportunity to actually untap with the green source, and the days on the Path to Exile would do such.
Yeah, I can see that. At the same time, I can also see like starting this turn off with a Path to Exile, getting the Delver off the board, and then kind of getting to do all of the same stuff. You know, yep. He has this like 1 plains that's awkwardly untapped right now.
Yeah. So there's the second days, which is not optimal in this spot. So let's see if he just blocks here. I would imagine being behind on life total, playing around days, having the removal spells, it's pretty neat to just block, but I wouldn't fault him for taking the damage and wanting to race the other way, having Battleskull and Jit. And he takes the damage. So he's reliantly thinking that he can remove enough creatures from Bryan's side that both the Stoneforge and the Flicker Wisp will do their thing. And then it would be pretty crazy if he actually just taps down the Volcanic here to play around the first Ancient Grudge activation.
I'm also wondering if he's just going to like leave up 5 mana or just like, I'm going to put in a Batter Skull and leave up the ability to bounce it.
Yeah.
That's something I could also see happening.
Yeah.
But I hope he does something to answer this Delver at some point. I think there is
a huge value in balancing your life total as a resource. But I think you have to deal with the Delver at some point. But maybe he thinks that he can sneak in one point of damage with the Jit.
So he's
and then just kill the Delver for free with the Jit counters before it gets grudged or Brazen Borrower. And I like that mentality to actually like get full value out of your cards. And yeah, it seems like that's what he wants to do here with the tapping down two lands here. But unfortunately,
now Bryan has drawn a land at a fortunate time, though.
This is the turn that he draws a land.
So next turn, we may see Pleasant Kenobi go in on a piece of equipment. All right, so now this has played into the days, really dazes, that we've seen rotting in Bryan's hand for so long.
Yeah, and the fun thing about this is that he gets to bounce the green source. So
that means next turn he can assuredly play Tarmogoyf or Sylvan Library.
Yeah, it's one of the upsides with Daze that people sometimes forget. It's that you actually get to play around the Richardon board.
So Bryan is going to have access to both Ancient Grudge and Brazen Borrower to deal with however Pleasant Kenobi decides to go about this equipment turn. It's really what it is.
And I think in this specific spot, there is a pretty nice play where you tap down the Wasteland in your upkeep.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you tap down the Wasteland, your opponent has no instant speed answers to you getting Jitte counters.
Yes, and then you get to kill the Delver for free. And this is the spot that we were talking about before, Phil. This is now you path the Delver, and if you looked like 4 turns ahead, you might have seen that you had to bounce the Delver if Bryan drew like the 4th land. So it is just such a hard spot if you should take the 9 damage from the Delver or just path it away immediately. But I think I really like that he's not saying, okay, I took 9 damage, I want to continue with the Jitte plan. He actually just like, okay, I'm gonna kill it. I like the heads up play here from Vince. I don't know if it's heads up, but like he's just accepting, okay, this I've taken too much damage and I'm gonna take additional 9 damage from it. So let's kill it right away.
So we may see just an upkeep Brazen Borrower bounce. I don't think so. I think we're just going to see Vince porting the Volcanic Island in the draw step. And Bryan might just be priced into holding up this Ancient Grudge for fear of what the equipment will get to do if it connects.
Yeah.
He's really fighting from a tough position here.
Yeah, but I actually think that Bryan is a little bit favored in this game with the current cards in hand, because he has a way to deal with almost everything.
He does, but I'm not sure that he has the time.
No, that is the issue here. Yeah.
So he's at 12 already. He's effectively at 11 because this Wooded Foothills is probably going to need to fetch in the next turn cycle.
Yep. So there's a Delver. One more Delver enters the battlefield. And I think Bryan is this is a tough spot for Brian, I would imagine, because he kind of doesn't want like a hit with Jitte with an untapped Ether Vial, since the Relic Warden, if he had boarded in, or Flicker Wisp on 3, can save an equipment from the first Ancient Grudge hit. So it's going to be interesting what is going to happen here. I would imagine that... No, I don't know.
Yeah, so again, the same line is open to Vince's last turn, where if he wants to port down something in the upkeep to get Jitte counters, he has the possibility of doing so.
Yeah.
But now we're just going to see him probably hold back for Stoneforge and Batterskull while also double porting.
Yeah, and I think there's no real reason to try and get the Jitte on the board. The reason before should be to kill the Delver for free, so you actually get something out of the Jitte before it gets Ancient Grudged. So I like not going for it here. I think that would be a little bit too much. But let's see if he actually bounces the Ether Vial here. It would be a pretty sweet play, casting the Brazen Borer on the Ether Vial.
I think you have to be doing something with your mana every turn since you're behind. Oh no, we're going to see a Grudge on it instead.
I think you can save it with your Relic Warden, right?
Yeah.
Or is it only opponents?
I'm pretty sure it's anything.
I think when Bryan isn't playing Pyroclasm, I think it could be a pretty nice play, because you're not going to snipe with Relic Warden, except if it's
you can save your own stuff with it.
Yeah.
So, no, it's really only saving it if your Relic Warder dies. But, there's plenty of situations where it can just chump block a Tarmogoyf or something, or it has to eat a removal spell just because it's threatening too much damage.
Yeah, I like the play. But it is a little bit soft to Null Rot. So if Bryan draws Null Rot like now, I guess he's going to die in 2 swings. So he's not going to play Null Rot. Yeah, so I definitely like playing the Relic Warden.
So we're seeing the traditional split of upkeep and draw step porting. Oh no, we have a waiting game now. So Vince has ported him off of green, and is then essentially saying, if you just leave up one of these red sources, I will just port it down come end of turn.
Yes, but he might also just want to play the Batterskull and bounce it if he casts an Ancient Grudge. And he knows that Bryan can only have 1 green available, so casting the Grudge from the grave is pretty hard if he wants to play Tarmogoyf as well. So I think you just get to untap with the Batterskull here. So you end of turn cast the Batterskull or play it, put it into play, and then you can bounce it if Bryan goes for.
Yeah, Pleasant Kenobi has 3, soon to be 4 creatures in play.
Yeah, and 3 of them is attacking for 8, so that's pretty neat. Yeah, so Bryan doesn't even.
He did not float mana there, which is super punishing.
Yeah, so I think he just F6'd here.
Yeah. So, boy, that one is gonna sting later. I mean, the situation was already bad.
Yes, I think I hate when I F6, but it's just like such. I always do it. So, and then when I haven't gotten punished for it in a long time, it just happens. I think Vince should have main faced the Richardon board, to be honest, and then going into the end step and casting the Batterskull.
Yeah, I think that line is fine, and I also think just leaving up the mana for Batterskull bounce is also fine as well.
Yeah, and you could also have put a stop in the end of combat and just done it in Bryan's end of combat to get rid of so that you couldn't play the Tarmogoyf.
So sort of an interesting situation in terms of damage is that Vince has chosen to not attack for 1 additional point of damage with Stoneforge Mystic to leave up the opportunity to either put in Jitte or bounce and redeploy the Batterskull.
Yeah.
So we're going to see these green sources probably, just effectively taxed once again.
Yeah, I love this. This is like a good music piece or something. Just seeing those Delver decks getting taxed on mana. Man, I love it.
So then next, all right. He throws in the towel. He's done here. Bryan getting stuck on mana for so long just meant that he could not use the creatures in hand. He couldn't use Sylvan Library to filter the draws. He had bounce spells like Brazen Borrower, but wasn't really on ahead on board to take advantage of the tempo. A lot of things were just very, very rough about that matchup for him.
Yeah, I actually thought that Vince was had some game talk, and everyone was talking about like the game, trying to like hide the information. So I didn't know what the outcome was. So I'm pretty happy that Vince played. I actually thought that he would be losing. So I love seeing Death in Texas flourish.
Yes, I would have bet against Vince going into this, but I knew the results going in, and I knew he was going to come out victorious.
Good job, Vince.
Vince a lot of times makes what looks like very strange plays to me, because the game plan that he's doing is frequently very, very different from what I would have done. And as we can see there, his game plan, which may have looked a little strange or questionable at times, did end up really working out well for him.
Yeah, I agree. And so even though I don't drink it, go Milk Boy. I think that's his. That's his. So I guess I'm gonna play now against Mengucci. 6 Sneak and Show versus Buck. And then I think you're gonna play against Vince. So we're gonna see this in live action instead.
Oh yeah, and because he brought a fun deck list to the table. I'm not gonna spoil it. I'll just like tease the chat a little bit. But I'm gonna say I'm not feeling good about the matchup. All right, we will be right back. We're gonna get everyone set up for round 2. See you again soon, folks.